The human mind isn't very well equipped to make sense of a figure like $1.2 trillion. We don't deal with a trillion of anything in our daily lives. And so when we come across such a big number, it's hard to distinguish it from any other big number. Millions, billions, trillions, they all start to sound the same, writes David Leonhardt. Almost 5 years ago, the Pentagon estimated that the war in Iraq would cost about $50 billion. Lawrence Lindsay, a White House economic advisor, was a bit more realistic, predicting that the cost could go as high as $200 billion, and President Bush fired him in part for saying so. But the deteriorating situation in Iraq has caused the initial predictions to be off the mark by a scale that it is difficult to fathom. Whatever number you use for the war's total cost, it will tower over costs that normally seem prohibitive. The way to come to grips with $1.2 trillion is to forget about the number itself and think instead about what you could buy with the money. When you do that, a trillion stops sounding anything like millions or billions. For starters, $1.2 trillion would pay for an unprecedented public health campaign, a doubling of cancer research funding, treatment for every American whose diabetes or heart disease is now going unmanaged, and a global immunization campaign to save millions of children's lives. The cost of running those programs for a decade wouldn't even use up half of our money pot. So then we could turn to poverty and education, starting with universal preschool for every 3- and 4-year-old child across the country. The city of New Orleans could also receive a huge increase in restoration funds. The final big chunk of money could go to national security. The recommendations of the 9/11 Commission that have not been put in place, better baggage and cargo screening, stronger measures against nuclear proliferation could be enacted. Financing for the war in Afghanistan could be increased to beat back the Taliban's recent gains, and peacekeeping force could put a stop to the genocide in Darfur. All that could be one way to spend $1.2 trillion. For Soul TV, I'm Patricia Rayner.